This is the first video in the series for Excel 2013. So I just wanted to do a whole new set the way I did with my previous versions with the Word Excel 2007 2010. And so if you already know Excel, this would be a very basic introduction, but I wanted to do it right from the get-go with the basic idea so anybody who's starting with Excel 2013 can learn it. So this is the new Excel. This is the way it starts out. There is the blank document, which is what we usually use, but they've created some really interesting templates. So if you look through the list, you see there's like a movie list app, and these templates are already ready-made to do whatever you want it to do. So the My Financial Portfolio, there is a back to school checklist. So this is very interesting if you needed something, and you see there is more stuff in here. Teachers to-do list, employee shift calendar scheduling. So it's very interesting what they've done with nice coloring and everything. If you needed it, once you know the basics, you can go through those. And if you did not find it here, you could go and search for a template, or you can go through one of these sections. And so this is the way Excel starts, and here are some of my recent documents. That means the documents I had already worked on, and now I have pinned this document here on the top. That means so that this stays here all the time, and if I felt like this Excel example was very important file for me, I can click on this pin symbol, so then it will be pinned here so that I have access to it easily all the time. So I'll start with the blank, so I'm going to double click on it, and here I am in the blank. So first we'll just go through some basic wording so that we both understand the ideas behind it. So there is the file button here, from which you can open files, save files, print, close. We'll talk about some of them. I can hit the back arrow. These home, insert, page layout, these guys are known as tabs. So I'll be telling you, I'll say click on the formulas tab, so then you'll click on it, and within there you'll find that these guys also, they use the word ribbons, so you'll see these sections here. So every tab has different buttons, in that sense, commands that can do different things. So under home there are the common commands. Now if by mistake, if you double click on any one of them, you'll find that the tabs are there, but the ribbons underneath the commands are hiding, and then when you click it again, it comes back, but you click away, it goes away. So if you make that mistake, just double click on it one more time. So when you double click by mistake, it will go into hiding, and usually you only have to hit it one time. And when that happens, you can also use this symbol here. It says ribbon display option, and you can click it and you can say show me tabs, or I can change it to auto hide ribbon. So you see the whole ribbon is hiding, and I can go back to show tabs and the commands. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is these buttons here. These are called quick access buttons, which are like shortcuts. You know, in construction people have a belt so they can get access to some important tools. So this is a section where you can add your important commands, the buttons. So I can click here and I can say put the print preview button here, the print preview, because this print preview is a very common command that you use. And you can go back here to customize option, and you can choose any of the other ones like spelling checks, quick print. And if you're looking for some buttons which are not listed here, you can go to more commands, and in the more commands I can start choosing, clicking on a button and adding it to my quick access section. And now you see it shows like 20 to 30 ones, and then you start wondering, well, that's not all the commands, there should be more. So you look on the top, it says popular commands. So that means I need to change this to all commands. Now look at the list. So these are all the buttons which are available in Excel. Now I can take any one of these buttons and I can add it to my shortcut list, and then I can click OK. And the same way, this is customizable. 2010 onwards, you can customize the tabs. So let me show you what I mean. If I click on File and I go to Options, In here, I'm going to go to customize ribbon, because that's the word they use for the tabs, ribbons. And you see these are the tabs that I have right now. And I can remove the check mark on the tabs that I don't want to see. And within the tabs there are groups, and those groups have certain buttons. So if I want, I can create a new tab. Okay, and I can click here and I can rename it. So I'll say I'll call it my name. And then within the tab there is the group, and I can rename the group to group A or whatever. You can even give label symbols. Now for this, if I wanted to add certain buttons, so I can now take certain buttons and I can add it to that section. So now I can customize it in such a way that this group categorizes certain commands, so I can group them together. And I can always add a new group, and I can click here and rename it, and I can call it group B. And I can start adding some other buttons to this. And I can keep on adding more if I needed it. And I'll just click OK just to show you what happened. And here, there it is, Amir. So there it is. So this is group A and this is group B. So for that, I can always go back to File, Options, and then I can go to Customize Ribbon. And if I don't want to see it, I can just remove the check marks from my name. And I can even move things up and down, so I can arrange them in a proper way. And if you had done this in Excel 2010, you can actually export it so that you can import it in your other computers if you wanted it. Okay, so I'll click OK, and now that tab is gone. Now in Excel, we have columns A, B, C. These are columns. And then we have rows, 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are cells. So wherever the columns and the row intersect, that's a cell. So this is C intersecting with row 2, C2, and you'll also see it listed here in this section, which is called a name box, which we'll understand a little bit later. But for now, you can see that when I click on a cell, it tells me E3 because I'm in column E, row 3, so they both are intersecting, so that's why it's called E3. And the cells are really important element of Excel, and this is why Excel got popular with bookkeeping and accounting and a lot of other things to do calculations, because we can do calculation with the information that's in a cell. So that's a very important thing to know right now, that this cell is called A1 because I'm in A and 1. And I can go sideways. So you see there's on the right hand corner there's an arrow, so it will take me sideways to Z, and then it becomes AA, AB, AC, and it'll keep going for a while, and then it will end. And then I have this down arrow here, which I can use to go down the pages, and this will keep going down for a while. And I think now it's depending on the computer memory, it could go all the way to like 100,000, 200,000, and it will still keep going. And just to show you, I'm going to click in the name box and I'll type A, and I'll try to type 100,000, and I'll hit enter. So now you see I'm on the row 100,000 right there on the bottom. So I can do that. So I click here again, A1, and I'll hit enter. So I'll come back here. So that's the name box, and these are cells. This here is called the formula bar, which I'll explain to you once I start doing calculations. And on the bottom we have sheet 1. In the previous version, they used to give you 3 different sheets. In this case, they only have 1. And I can use this plus sign to add a second sheet. So I can keep on adding more. I can even double click on it, and I can give it a name. So it's highlighted. Now I can type February on it, and sheet 1 can be called January. So you can label them whatever you want it to be. You can even right click on it, and you can rename it to whatever you want. We'll talk about this too. So I can come back to sheet 1. And in the right hand corner, I have this zoom button, the minus sign and the plus sign. So this is good because I can increase the zoom, so I can see the information much more easily. This is not going to impact my printout. It is only going to impact the way I see things. So I would rather do that so that you can see the information much better. Alright, so now let's get going with doing something with Excel. So the first thing is, how do you enter? The first thing to remember when you are entering is to make sure you are in the cell where you want to enter your information. So if I want to enter something in A1, I click in there and then I'll start typing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now when you do that, you can hit this X means cancel. That means don't do what I'm typing, don't accept it. And the check mark means like accept what I'm doing, enter. So if I click it, it's accepted it now and I'm done with that typing. I can also click here and I can type my name. Now instead of using this check mark, you can also use the enter key on the keyboard and it takes you down. Enter means let's move on. With this check mark, you stay in that cell. So the way I usually work it is when I'm entering data, I use the enter key on the keyboard. So say if I'm typing John and I want to go to the cell on the right so that I can type the last name, I'll use the tab key on the keyboard. So if you look in the left hand side on the keyboard, you see a button called tab, T-A-B. Now I can type Do and I want to go down, I'll hit enter. So tab takes you sideways and enter will take you down. And the other button you can start seeing is like, say if I click here and I type my name, and I can even put the number along with it. Look on the bottom, on the left hand side on the bottom, it's telling me enter. That means I am trying to enter something. So it's just telling me I'm in the enter mode. The important thing to know also in Excel is whenever you are finished with something, you want to either hit this check mark enter or hit the enter on the keyboard, so that when you click it, you see on the bottom it says ready. So you want to be in the ready mode when you're not doing anything. So that's a very important point to remember, because if you are still in there, by mistake you might type something else in it which you don't want to do. So that's the part of entering. Let's talk about removing, editing, like deleting things. So if I don't want this information in there, I can just hit the delete button on the keyboard and the information is gone. I can even come to say this Lisa and I want to delete a whole bunch all the way below it. I point to the middle, left click and hold the left click on the keyboard and I can drag. Like see, whatever I drag is getting highlighted. And if I hit the delete button on the keyboard, that means everything in that section is deleted. So you can highlight things. And if you ever make a mistake, you can always use the undo button. Undo button means bring things back. And you can keep going back. I always try to do maybe 1 or 2 steps at a time. I don't try to do too many. So that is for deleting. Now let's talk about what is called editing. Editing means I don't want to delete everything. So I want to remove the number 4 from this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll take my mouse and I'll double click on it. Now when I double click, you see there is a line blinking in there, and look on the bottom, it says I'm in the edit mode. So because I'm editing, so it's not a big deal, it's just something that you need to know. Now you can use the arrows on the keyboard, the left and the right arrow, to move the cursor, or you can click with your mouse to wherever you want it to be. So now if I want, I can hit the backspace. Number 4 is removed and I can use the check mark and it's done. So that's one way of editing, is by double clicking on it. The other way is that you can click in the formula bar. So this is the formula bar here. I can click here between 3 and 5. See right there? And then I'm back into edit mode and I can put the number 4 and I can hit enter. Or I can use the check mark. So either way. Now if I wanted to add more, I can click at the end after 7 and I can put 8 and 9 and I can use the check mark. And you see what Excel did is automatically expanded this column. Usually in the previous version, I think in 2003, you used to see a pound symbol, like you used to get to this pound symbol, and then you would have to come here, look for that symbol, left click and hold it and drag it, or you just double click. So it will expand the column, it will expand the cell so that I can see my information. So that's about editing. Editing is either you double click on a cell or you can use the formula bar. There is one more option which is used by people who spend a lot of time in Excel, which is by using the function keys, which are those F1, F2, F3, F4 keys right there on the top. So the edit option is used by the F2 button. So if you press F2, you'll find that I'm in the edit mode, and I can now move around with my arrows, and I can remove something, and I can hit enter on the keyboard. So this is the ways to edit, and you'll find you'll use one or the other. So you can either use double click, you can use the formula bar. So just make sure that you are in the cell that you want to change. Now let's talk about saving the file, because it's very important that you save your file just in case something happened to your computer. Your file is not lost. So I can click on the save button here, or I can click on the file button and then I can choose save. So either way you can do that. And when you hit it, you get to choose whether you want to save it to your computer. This is the SkyDrive, is Microsoft's cloud service, so that I can save my information on this computer and also on the internet, so that I can have access to it from anywhere in the world. So I'll click on computer and I'll click browse, because I want to save it exactly where I want it. Now if I want, I can create a new folder. So I already have a folder called Excel files, but if I wanted, I could just create a new folder, and I can call it Excel 2013, and I can double click on it, or click on it one time and then double click on this, because I want to save in it. So you have to make sure it saves up here, otherwise it will save it in the documents. And for the file name, I can call it Excel Part 1, or whatever you want to call it. Always give it a meaningful word, so that when you look at the name of the file, you know what it is. And you can also save it as different types. What does that mean is, say if you were going to send this file to somebody who does not have the new version of Excel, then you can send it to them as Excel 2003-97 format, which nowadays you don't have to worry too much about. So I can hit save. Now the file is saved, and if you look on the top, it says Excel Part 1. So I know that the file has been saved. Now if you also later on, say I saved this as the 2013 format, and I worked on it, now I want to give it to somebody else, but that person does not have the new version, and I want to make sure that everybody can open my file. So then now I can come back to file, and I can choose save as. Save as means I want to save this existing file with a new file name or in a new location. So if I click save as, I can again choose computer and browse. Now I can say save this as Excel 1.1, because I cannot save it as the same file name in the same place. But I could create a new folder within this Excel and then give it the same names, because it will be a different folder, so then I can give it the same name. So I'll do that. So I'll just create a new folder, and I can call it Excel 2013, and I'll double click on it. So now we see within Excel 2013 there is another Excel 2013, which I should have named it something else. And now I can save it as Excel 97 2003 and then hit save. Now this file is saved. So I would rather put something in this file name that will tell me this is the old format, so that it's easy to understand. I'll just hit cancel right now. So that's the difference between save and save as, because now if I keep hitting the save button, it will keep saving it as that file. When I want to save it as a different name, that's when I use the save as option. So that's the difference of save and save as. Okay. And now let's just look at closing and opening the file. So if I click here and I close this file, so you can open the files two ways. You can open from your desktop. You'll see come to this option for my documents, and then you can go to the documents folder, and then you can go to the Excel 2013 folder, and then there is your file. You can open it from here. Or you start Excel, and from the file button you will usually see the last file you created listed here. If it was in the last few files listed here, you can go back to computer, and then you can browse, and then you can double click on the Excel folder and then open the file. So that's the closing option. You can do it from here, and there's the open option. Even if you have one file open, you can keep on opening other files too. You can work on more than one file. you can also hit the closing button from this X here. I'm going to come to sheet 2 and I'm going to increase the zoom because it doesn't remember the zoom. And we'll do like a really simple calculation and I'll end this video and then we'll do more in the next one. So I'm just going to put 2, then I hit the tab key because I want to go next. 3 tab, 4 tab, 1 tab. So I'm going to introduce you to the basic idea of a formula. How do you do calculations in Excel? Because that's what Excel is popular for. In this cell E1, I want to do a simple calculation. I want to add 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 1 and I want to put the total here, which will be 10. So do a calculation in Excel, you have to start with an equal sign. And then you can do the calculation like this: 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 1. Just remember, don't put any plus sign after this because there is nothing coming after this. And I'll use the check mark and I get the result 10. Now this is the wrong way of doing things in Excel, because if say the number 1 changes to number 2, so I'm going to type 2 and I hit enter, but my total is still 10 because now I'll have to double click on my calculation, remove the 2, remove the 1, add the number 2 and now hit enter. So now my total is right, but that's the problem because I don't want to keep redoing this. I'm going to hit the delete button on the keyboard. In Excel, whenever you do a calculation, you do a calculation with what is known as a cell reference. So if you, this cell is A1, this is B1, this is C1, this is D1. So this is what is known as cell reference. We are referencing the cell. So I'm going to do the same calculation in E1 with the cell reference, which is the right way of doing things. So I'll put equal A1 plus sign B1 plus sign C1 plus sign D1. And you don't have to worry about whether you type it capital or not. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you don't put any plus sign after this because there are no more cells coming. And now if I use check mark, now I've got the result 10. Now if I change this 2 to 1 and I hit enter, you see the number changes. If I change this 3 to 3.5, the total changes. Back to 3, tab, it changes. So this is the benefit of Excel, because once you set up the formula, it will keep on changing as the numbers are changing. I'll show you an easier way of doing the calculation. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to start with the equal. Remember, equal sign is a very important thing when you're doing calculation, because that's the way Excel knows that it needs to do a calculation, that you're not trying to add a word or a number, you're actually wanting Excel to do a calculation. Now instead of typing A1, you can click on the cell A1 and then put the plus sign, B1 plus sign, C1 plus sign, D1, and then I can use the check mark, and there it is, the calculation is done. And you can do many different calculations, like there are different operations for the plus sign is this, that's the sign for plus. The minus sign is the minus. Divide sign is the slash. And the multiplication sign is the asterisk. So if you have a laptop or if you have a desktop, look on your keyboard. On the right hand side, you will see a number pad where you have your numbers. In some laptops, they don't have it, but in most laptops nowadays, they do. So you see a number pad and you can see there is a slash on it. Next to the slash, there is the multiplication. Next to the multiplication, there is the minus. And below the minus, there is the plus sign. So you can use these symbols to do the calculation. The slash is for division. The asterisk is for multiplication. And you can also use the number pad. It's easier. If you found that the number pad doesn't work, press the num lock button. The num lock button is to turn the number lock on. So you see, you might be seeing something on my screen. This is the lock option. In the desktop keyboard, you see a light somewhere. When you press it, it turns on. So if that number lock is not on, you will not be able to use it. So I'll just click away, and you can practice also if I want. I can click here equal, and then I can click on a cell, and I can put a divide sign, and I'll click on another cell. So I'm doing 4 divided by 3, but instead of typing 4, I'm pointing to the cell, and I'll use check mark, so I get the answer. I can do equal 4 minus 3. I can do equal, click on a cell, multiply by another cell. And there it is. 4 3s are 12. And it doesn't matter if the number changes here, becomes 10. You see all the calculations change. This changed, this changed, this changed, this changed. Because they all are looking at these cells to find their calculation. Because this F5 calculation is equal to C1 multiplied by B1, which is 10 multiplied by 3. So if I change this number back to 4 and I hit enter, everything else changes also. So that's it for this video. In the next one, I'll add more elements.